Hello and greeting everyone, wherever you are. Good morning to our friends in the United States and happy 4th of July. And good afternoon if you are in Europe. Welcome to another installment of Demystifying Post Production's webinar. And throughout July, we'll be dedicating the Demystifying Post Production's webinar into the topic of color grading. So we'll be shifting gear a little bit from 3D and Redshift that was discussed thoroughly last month, and we'll get into business in some color grading stuff. And speaking of last month webinar, for those of you who missed the webinar last month, and for those of you who want to rewatch it, you can simply check it out in our YouTube channel. It is called the Maxon Training Team. And all of our webinar hosted by Maxon Training Team will be uploaded here in YouTube Maxon Training Team. And also this webinar, the color grading series throughout July, will also be hosted there after the live sessions. So to give you an overview of today's webinar of throughout this month, we will have a total of 4 webinars this month about color grading. And we will have a recurring topic about guaranteeing a consistency in building a look that will represent the photography aimed by the cinematographer. Thus, the title that we picked, Color from Set to Post and Back. And yeah, in today's sessions, we'll be leaning towards the theory side, and we'll be talking a little bit about how look is developed. And we'll investigate how colorists can work harmoniously with the DP to develop a look that will retain or leverage the photographic intent of the cinematography. And we'll cover things such as communicating with the DP, creating look using some references, and also working with DIT and dailies. And at the end of the sessions, we will see how Diego will go a miles and create the Show LUT. And since I'm pretty sure that we will be running out of time by the time we are creating the LUT, we'll also revisit the LUT creating sessions in the week 2 of the webinar. We will be live from Canon Burbank studio, and we'll be joined by Genaro Xavier Arroyo, a senior pro market specialist from Canon USA. And we will see how LUT can be created on set, transferred to the camera, and then further transferred into post-productions. And also, in week 3, we will talk a little bit about color management aspect. It's a bit more technical topic, but I think everyone can benefit from it. And we'll do a follow-along sessions to set up a color managed project in DaVinci Resolve using ACES. And our hope is that by the end of the week 3, everybody will be comfortable setting up a color managed project in DaVinci Resolve for your next color grading gig. And then we will finish up the month with a special guest, and we'll be joined by Stu Maschwitz, the director, post-production supervisor, and also chief creative officer at Maxon. And Stu will share some stories behind Magic Bullet Film Tool, and he will also share some tips and tricks of doing film emulation treatment for your project. And joining us today is Anthony Barry. Tony is a finishing editor and post-production consultant and also a filmmaker based in Los Angeles. And Tony also directed and shot some of his documentary movies. And recently he just finished some series for YouTube Originals, like you can see in the shared screen. Those series are about the untold story of refugee athletes, and Tony was collaborating in the project as finishing editor this time, right, Tony?
Yep, that's correct.
And also alongside with Tony, also joining us today is Diego Llama. Diego is the director and colorist at Estudio Rocco based in Colombia. And Diego is also a master trainer for Blackmagic design. And for those of you who are curious about ACES color management, I think you will be in for a treat, because Diego just released some education series for Netflix about ACES pipeline, and you can search them in YouTube under new Digital Backlot brand account. And this is such an amazing, easy to understand, but thorough series on ACES, which I really highly recommend you to check them out. And yeah, it's actually a very nice playlist to watch before we are going into ACES discussions in week 3. And me, myself, my name is Max, and I'm the resident colorist and trainer here at Maxon. So before we jump into our discussions, let me pinpoint you to some interesting facts here. If you would like to test your knowledge in any of Maxon products, you can do that by going to maxon.net/certifications. And there are 3 certifications that you can take. The elementary knowledge test, and then also 2 certifications more in-depth certifications in Cinema 4D. So for example, if you're using Magic Bullet Looks, the Magic Bullet suite for your color grading workflow, and you want to refresh your memory, and you can take the exam here by using this link. And then also in the end, if you pass the exam with a score of 85% and up, you will win a certificate of acknowledgement. And also today, you can also get a free T-shirt, and by using the code that we provide in the handout sections. So there is a link in the handout sections, 2 PDF file in the handout sections, and in one of them, you can follow the link and go to the merch store and use the password to get a free T-shirt. All you need to do is just enter the password, and you will need to pay the shipping cost, but you will get the T-shirt for free. And yeah, the code is only valid for 1 order, by the way. And also for further events, you can check it out in our website, maxon.net/events. So without further ado, let's jump into discussions. So in today's sessions, we will look into the development of looks in the pre-productions, in the pre-shoot stage, to be exactly. We'll see how creative decisions are made during this time, and then also along with the technical decisions, what camera to use, what recording codec that we want to use, and lenses, and so on and so forth. And then after that, we'll also see the process of doing camera testing to create our to base our look on for the show. And in the end, we'll also see how Show LUT is created. So actually today, Tony will wear a director hat and will share some communications with Diego as the colorist, and we'll take you through the all this interesting tidbit. So without further ado, Tony, I'll give you the stage.
All right, thank you. Hopefully I got my voice back. Happy 4th of July. All right, so I guess I'll start. We have, let's just talk through this little chart first, and then I'll share my screen on Resolve. So creative decisions such as like the story conversation, and then like what is the idea, what's the aesthetic, what are you going for? A lot of it has to do with mood and color work side by side. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so like mood and color work side by side. So based on that, I like to go and play with the camera and really try things out before I actually do them. And you might end up with some take-home stuff, and you might end up with some scraps, and you might end up with stuff that you just want to do again with either a different wardrobe or a different scenery. The location didn't work as great as you thought it would work. So, I love to go and test an idea before I actually push it and move forward with it. So I'm going to show you a test shoot that I've done here. There's definitely some takeaway, take home stuff, but there's also some stuff that could have been done better just due to sunlight, location, and timing, of course. So with that said, I'm going to just kind of navigate through some of these shots here, and then I'll show you kind of how you can quickly organize and just say like, hey, I'm going to flag this shot. Hey, this is a great one. This is how I like make my decisions on like, how we can even develop an idea by selecting those shots that did work versus the other ones that didn't. And as you can see, I shot a ton of stuff here. And, sometimes it just sucks to sit around and sift through all this. Not to mention there was 2 different cameras, but today we're going to look at the Sony camera versus this other camera, which is a Canon camera, which has two separate looks. So just kind of going through here, there's an option inside of Resolve that's called Live Media Preview, and you can use this inside. I'm inside of the media page here in Resolve 17. I'm brave, but I'm not brave enough to do 17.2.2 yet, I guess, but I'm on 17.2.1. So in here, I'm just gonna kind of jump around and play through a few of these ideas. The whole idea of this story is, this is kind of a battle with himself. One persona, he's the guy in the suit. The other persona, he's the guy, on the court, already in his gym gear, already in his athletic wear. So two different personalities, two different kind of people, right? And it's one perspective versus another perspective, and there's different moods involved, and there's this pairs along with a narrative that really comes from an interview. So I'm showing you something that's in progress, so don't mind me on some of this stuff right here. I just we went along and we tried a few things out, and the actor here, he's pretty amazing. He's in a full suit in the summer heat, jumping up and down, playing basketball, like dunking the ball, like all kinds of stuff. He even tore his suit. That's how dedicated he is. You can see he kind of tore his suit right here. So, I got to commend him. He was there to put up with my stuff. So, but with that said, a few different things that kind of jump out, the idea and the mood, right? And then also, wardrobe, like you want something contrasty. If you're going to have, this is still blue, but it's like a different hue. It's not, we're not going to have somebody just wearing, all white, or we're not going to have them wearing something that might be conflicting, or we could go for the La La Land look, and I'll ask them to just wear all yellow suit, right, Diego? So, we can go from that. And, the idea in this is kind of like which shots, I almost can't wait. Sometimes, you catch yourself previewing the stuff after you shoot it, just to kind of either you're mentally patting yourself on the back, or B, you're just kind of excited about that last one, or it might have been a hair off and you need to play it back and see if it worked. So there's a lot of trial and error to get something, even something that's 1 minute long, to look really nice, and that's just trial and error. And because we did have the time, we tried a whole bunch of stuff. A lot of this stuff was shot on the Sony FX6 using the Sigma cinematic lenses, and I think in particular this one was Sigma art lens this time, 35mm 1.2. So really shallow depth of field at times, and at other times you just, I'm using it for the amount of available light let in. So we did all kinds of stuff. We got the shadows, right? So we're shooting this like shadow puppets kind of situation, right? Then we're shooting like a profile, and like how close are we, and it's also super bright outside, so that's another thing to account for. And if you see in here in this project, some of these shots are really dim, right? And some of them, you have different exposures, because as the day went on, it just got really, really, really bright, and then the clouds would cover, and then so you really just got to like work around that. So with that said, let me kind of dive in here, and I'll show you some of the selects that I've made. And the way I go about doing it, I do like to kind of skim around in here, and you can see all this like little red marks right here. These are the areas that I've already used, and you can see that's the in and out point. All right, so you can go in here and you can make sub clips, or you can flag these clips, right click, and then choose flag and make different colored flags, or even do a clip color. So when it hits your timeline, this is the shot that I'm going to use for VFX. This is the shot that I'm going to use for this opening scene. So there's so many ways that you can make an ongoing theme when you're organizing, and just to do it really quick. So let me jump over here, and I like to do, Shift 2 takes me to the media page. Shift number 4 will take me to the edit page. Inside the edit page here, let me just turn this off. But inside the edit page, you can see I have some orange clips. Right? These are the ones that are kind of like my main selects. And then I have another project. This is the bigger project, but I ended up trimming it down just to give Diego an idea of kind of the shots that I'm going to be using. Because again, when you do this kind of stuff, yeah, I have a ton of media, But if I'm collaborating with a colorist, especially a guy who's doing this stuff for Netflix and all this stuff that doesn't have the time, you know, I like to give them just the right amount of idea that I'm going for, right? So, you know, this is my bigger project, but I took
Tony,
this and let me open this up.
Tony,
Yeah,
if I may interrupt you, sorry. There is such a nice question from Joey here. I
sure.
think it's really nice that we can tackle it here. Joey is asking why not shooting a chip chart, the color checker chart
Oh,
for
of course.
the test shoot.
So that it's not a question of why not, it's a question of what do I have at the moment. So,
Yeah.
you know, when you're going out and you're doing an idea, yes, that is the proper way to do it. Does the proper way happen all the time? No. I used to even have stickers for my what do you call it, my slate, like I even have here. So that's a great question. The answer is sometimes little things go out the window with this. It can be annoying to somebody like Diego, but you know, and you do have color reference on your slate as well, you know, but you know, the ideal situation, yes, you do. When you're doing this kind of like on borrowed time, meaning it's not like somebody will say, yeah, I got about 2-3 hours to do this. And then for you to get all set up and you know, it was two of us, you know, two people with cameras, plus, you know, talent, plus I'm behind the camera and I'm telling them what to do. So little things go out the window. That's the short answer. Now, but like I mentioned before, yeah, in an ideal situation, yeah, chip chart. I mean, I have color reference here, but this is not as good as a chip chart. So when I'm on a paid job, chip chart all the way. So I hope that answers your question. Now, if I go over here, I'm going to switch to the smaller version of this where I kind of went through and just kind of got rid of all the ideas and just kind of went to the main ones that I'm going to stick with. On here, you know, I have all these shots that I went for, and then I even, as far as like just trying to convey the idea, there's a couple ways you can do that. So let me show you this website here called Shotdeck, right? And on this website, you can kind of look up movies that you really love the idea for, and this is just creative inspiration. You know, you can match the looks, you know, when you have somebody like Diego when you missed, right? But you can also, you know, and it takes a little bit of practice, but you get the idea here. Like this is for a film, Man on Fire, which I happen to think was an amazing film, looked really good, and the colors were just great. But let me clear this out and just show you something. Let's say I wanted to look for a saturated or a desaturated look. All right, so on Shotdeck, you can kind of just search by either the color like tones, or you can, you know, go by the composition, if it's an interior, exterior, or time of day even, you know, if you want to see like dusk, right? So you can kind of sort through like this. You know, the database is growing, and you know, I would say you might see some repeats in there, but it's really, really interesting how much metadata and how many ideas you get from this. And you can see, you know, what they shot with, what kind of, if it was a film stock, if it was, you know, digital, what the case, you know, what it is they're using to achieve this. So with this said, you know, I plucked a few. Let me show you some favorites that I have. And these are not all for this idea here in particular. These are some that I've just collected because I love, you know, their looks, and you know, depending on where I am and what I'm trying to do, you know, these are just some that I might want to achieve in the near future. So, but in particular, I did pick a couple, and I picked some that were abstract and kind of annoying on purpose to challenge Diego here. So one that I like here in particular for this kind of thing is City of God, and you can see this kind of like interesting like pink and orange, and this really like it's a slightly desaturated look, but kind of looks like pastels. Of course, you know, La La Land, just to kind of you know, get that out of the way. The color was amazing. Nobody's wearing yellow, but again, this is just ways to kind of throw a challenge at Diego, because I feel like you know, when you do collaborate from set to post, there's definitely a challenge, and the challenge is in the communication and the way that we convey our ideas. So Shotdeck is just one way that, you know, to kind of grab your idea and send, hey, I want to take this shot and I want to make it look just kind of like this. So this is my motivation here. Am I achieving this? Maybe not fully, but you know, some flavor of it. maybe I might get the generic brand, but I don't get the full idea. So here, right, and not to say that Diego's the generic brand or anything. So here I am, and here's something I put together just as an idea, just to be the annoying, you know, camera person that knows how to do color, right? Because you know, when you're doing that, wearing both hats is not necessarily when you're talking to somebody that's just wearing one hat versus the other. That's, you know, that's their full job, and then for me to come in here and say I know what I'm doing in color to Diego can be annoying. So I'm going to show you just how annoying this can get. But just for the simple fact, I used Magic Bullet Looks just to kind of get this idea, and this is an idea that, you know, I'd like to achieve and even maybe even push it harder, and that's why I have Diego. So, you know, with this, you know, you can achieve this with just a simple, you know, node tree and resolve. Plus, you know, these are looks that are in inside of Magic Bullet Looks. So if I'm in Magic Bullet Looks, it's a quick way to get to an idea, something you might pull from Shotdeck, you know. So with this said, you know, you can shop around and you can kind of see, you know, if you see different ideas that you like, you can collect your own little groups of ideas, right? And, you know, and then send them back over, you know. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is just pretending that I'm a colorist for the day and then going into the color page and then, you know, making a node or, you know, applying a look, right? So go in there and just kind of go and play around with this shot. So I have, let's say this shot right here. I'm doing Option S, and then just kind of do the lift, gamma, gain, the basics, right? Bring this down, bring that up, bring this up a little more, and then depending on how crunched I want it, how much darker do I want to emphasize that, and then maybe I want to go blue here in the gamma, right? Again, me doing this is an idea. I'm not trying to be the colorist. You know, when there is collaboration, true collaboration, that's when you can get in here and you can, you know, send your idea over to the colorist. So from here, you know, I've made somewhat of a look. I'll jump back into here. So, you know, the methods I would say to just kind of, if I was handing this off, right, handing it off to Diego, I color code the ones that I've tried out and that I think look good. Mind you, I'm saying I think they look good, you know, and these are my ideas. So they're orange, they're on the second track, right? And I'm just kind of bringing them up there, and that's the idea for like anything within these scenes. These are the different types of scenes. You can actually see it better in the color page. So you'll see that these kind of things are grouped together, right? Like those isolated shots, and then those like wider shots. And then, you know, you kind of like, I'm grouping them all together and I'm just trying ideas. And that's when I would send this with the media, you know, best thing you can do, go to File, Media Management. And inside of here, you can send your whole timeline. You can transcode and send just the media plus handles, which is a good option. Just choose the right thing to transcode, like a nice ProRes or DNX, something with enough data, 10-bit if you shot 10-bit, and send that over to the colorist. And then that way you don't have to send them all the crazy stuff, especially when you're shooting slow motion. You tend to do these really long bursts instead of just short clips. So anyway,
Tony,
with that said, yep.
There's a question from Sharon, and I think she's referring to the look development as well. Can we do something similar like this in Premiere? I think by using Magic Bullet Looks, you can also use it in Premiere, right?
100%. So, you know, the reason why I'm talking Magic Bullet Looks is because if you were to highlight this and do the effect, right, let's just do that really quick. So I'm going to change this look completely, right? So I have this look. I can actually, let me just, I can save it as like an idea to come back to, right, in my reference library. And then I can also save this look here from untitled to like, you know, let's just call this b-ball _1, but just starting from scratch, right? So inside of here, for Magic Bullet Looks, you can kind of fish through the catalog here, which has got some pretty amazing stuff. When you're shooting with something, the newer cameras are all HDR capable. I would say 90% of the newer cameras are all HDR capable. When they have about 13, 14 stops of dynamic range, They're all HDR capable, from DSLRs to the cinematic cameras. So, you know, you can work in this little HDR section here. You can even just go and, you know, there's film setups. This is literally a really diverse, you know, catalog just to shop through and to get you to a good spot, you know. So this necessarily doesn't have to be where you land, right? So you can kind of
So you can literally collaborate from Premiere Pro with DaVinci Resolve if you have Magic Bullet looks by using the presets, right?
And the major thing I would say is like, yeah, you save out your preset, right? So when you save these out, you can actually go through, and let me just show you on the Mac side. So if you're on the Mac side, you can save it. It becomes this little file that lives right here, right? Let me just show you where it lives. So it would be here. So computer, documents, Red Giant, Magic Bullet looks, then presets, my new looks. And that's because I made this right here. See what it says custom looks? I call that my new looks. But if I were to make another one, it would just simply, if I go back here, you'll see these are all those categories. These match those folders that I've made here inside of my custom looks. You can make all your different collections based on project, based on you know, client, whatever the case may be, and then you can ship those over. And the colorist, here's the flip side to this, right? So if I take this one here, or even I think it was in custom, right? So the one that I just made, where did I put it? There it is, B-ball 1. All right, so I'll reapply that, and I'm in here, and let's say, for instance, I'm going to blow this away, and this is I just sent the timeline over to the colorist, and you know, you can apply these, by the way. I always like making a second note here, but you can apply these if I go to my effects, open effects, and go to Magic Bullet in the color page as well, right? And let me just type in looks. There it is. I can just drop it on a node here. So now it's in their chain, right? If there's anything to get comfortable with inside of Resolve, just understand the very basics of the color page when you're trying to do this, if you want to make it easier on yourself to convey your ideas. And then look, I applied that same preset. So let's say I came from Premiere, and now I'm going here to Resolve, and I just make a node and apply this in the color page. You can even make these as favorites too. See a little star in the corner? So that becomes a favorite, and then now it'll populate up here. So if I do this, that populates with all my favorites here. So now apply that. This gets applied to a node. You can also change your input color space. So if it was log footage, right? Or if it was, you know, 709 footage. But by default, when you're coming out of this, to make sure that you don't have any issues, I would keep the output in sRGB, I believe. For right now, that's the way to keep things consistent. When you exit out of this and when you go back into Resolve, you're not going to notice a major shift, because there's also one thing to be aware of is the color management inside of Resolve, and that's something that I'll let Diego explain a little more. So again, you can put this in here just as a simple color node, and now instead of it being on the edit page as an effect, the same thing is available in there. If you did it in Premiere, you can, you know, ship that over, and you know, the effect is not going to transfer over, but your preset, all you have to do is kind of point to the presets, and you know, if you wanted to take it a step further, go to the color page here, and then just apply your preset to this node. So I hope that answers that question. But I did want to, just to kind of bring us back to our full outline here, Max. If
Yes.
so, as far as technical decisions, as far as, you know, which camera do you use? What does that camera look like? What lens do you put on? Like, those are all, like, if you go with something, you need a smaller camera to be a little more discreet, and maybe, you know, you're just trying to steal these shots, meaning you're in like a public space and you got a million people around, and you can't lock this place down with, you know, with PAs everywhere, and you're trying to get something with a smaller camera, so not everybody taps you on the shoulder to be like, what are you shooting? Hey, what are you shooting? I have that camera. I love that camera. Things that happen all the time when you pull a camera out, no matter what city, town, village, wherever you live, that's going to happen. So to avoid that, you know, maybe you want to dial it down. You have like a Blackmagic pocket camera. Maybe you shoot it with your phone. Maybe you shoot it with, you know, a bigger camera. But all these things play into what you're going to end up with on the other side. There are a lot of cameras. I know Sony came out with cameras that, you know, even the smallest little boxy version of the camera looks very similar to the bigger, you know, bigger parts of the family, the older siblings in that family. So, but nothing's going to look exact. So besides that, the lens that you choose to use, whether you go prime or if you need a zoom, because it's easier for you to have one zoom that does multiple ranges. It's really kind of a convenience factor. If you do primes and you want to walk all the way up to your subject versus, you know, just kind of having that zoom, you know, so that, you know, that plays into the look of it too. I love primes and I don't mind running around. And in this one in particular, this was a prime that I was using, and I was a 35 millimeter, and I was just like literally running back and forth and running back and forth, and then just getting really close up. And another reason why I chose a wide angle lens, so when I do get close up, it looks like a medium versus you know, a really narrow shot. So and with a 35 millimeter, you start getting close up, you know, it gets kind of personal, especially if somebody's like sweating bullets and like, you know, playing hardcore basketball by themselves. At the same time, you know, we're communicating with one another. So, but you know, another thing that factors into that, choosing your camera, is also choosing the codec that's available inside of your camera. The Blackmagic cameras have the awesome RAW built right in. Sony has its own particular look, and I love it, but it doesn't have onboard RAW. So, you know, you can shoot really flat. You can shoot a nice heavy, you know, heavy file. Not too heavy, but heavy enough to where you have 10-bit color and you can shoot 120 frames at 4K, which some of this is, and it looks amazing. But they're two different looks. And in particular, I really wanted to push the buttons on the Sony because I've been kicking around my Blackmagic camera so much. I wanted to push this Sony a little harder. So with this, you know, the fact is I don't have that RAW, but I do have quite the spectrum of color. So it's not as hard to blow out the sky, but at the same time, one thing I love about this camera in particular, has this built-in ND that's an electronic ND filter that will keep everything consistent throughout. So the ND filter will adjust on the fly based on your lighting. It's one of the best in all these cameras at like 10,000 and below. It's one of the best ND filters that I've seen. I've never seen the electronic system work so well. So, you know, the same way that your aperture will adjust if you were on a DSLR, or your ISO will adjust, this ND filter will adjust. So it's pretty amazing feature. So I wanted to push that in broad daylight, and that's part of what this is. So you'll see some contrast, but then at times you can see, you know, when the lighting adjusted, you don't see the contrast as much. But again, when you're doing stuff in slow-mo, you don't really have full autofocus control, but you can use that artistically to have a nice little like soft focus and kind of you know, emphasize the fantasy mode, right? So
Tony, once you have this decisions, like what recording codec that you use, what type of lenses, and so on and so forth, the thing that we will do next is the camera test, right?
Yeah.
And what are the things to watch out in doing camera test?
I mean, how much range does your camera have, and how much detail will you see in the shadow? How much detail will you see in the highlights? How like if you're using something, you're planning on shooting wide open because you like that look and you want to have nice soft focus at times. If you shoot wide open, even with ND, some cameras just don't have that range and they start to blow things out, or you start to lose things and things become very contrasty. So you know, look at, you know, how that actual sensor will process your colors. And then one major thing on that, speaking of camera test, if you have multiple lenses on, or you're just turning this camera on with this lens and you haven't used it before on this camera or whatever, you change lenses, do I think they call it APR sometimes, it's called shading at other times. It's basically like the black balance for the camera, just like you would do a white balance. Basically cover up that lens, right? And make sure no light is coming through, and then just let the camera recalibrate the sensor before you start shooting. I know on the Sony cameras, it'll tell you, I think on the Canon cameras as well, it'll say like, you know, you've changed lens. Do you wish to do APR? Do you wish to do a shading? And basically you're telling the camera what the absolute dark values are, and just like you would tell the camera what the white pixels are. So that's very important. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I can tell you on the post side, you end up with stuck pixels, and that really sucks because you have these tiny little things. You don't notice them on a screen that looks this big, right? Or even this big, but you will notice them in a movie theater when everybody's watching and there's one pixel that's just the size of somebody's eye, you know, eyeball or something, and it's just kind of floating around, and there's no hiding that. Or you're going to be doing a lot of work to fix that constantly if you don't do that. Every shot might have one pixel here, one pixel here, one pixel here, and that really can be a pain in the neck, and the colorist will not like you for that. So yeah,
two questions for that. There are two questions for that. First one will be, Diego, what would be the benefit from colorists? What do colorists need to know about the camera test? What do colorists need from it? And then the second one, we also have a question from Sharon. Do you have to do a back focus calibrations as well? I think that's for Tony, right, to answer?
I mean, two things here is like, make sure that number one, your autofocus in general, right? Like if you do anything that has to do with, you know, if you have the time, the prep time, right? And you don't just grab the camera and go. If you own the camera, that's one thing. You can do this, you know, the night before in your house, right? And have a chip chart on the wall, right? But if you, you know, if you're renting the camera, 100%, 100%. The same way if you go and pick up a rental car, right? Like, and you drive down the street, you might notice that it's not 100%, doesn't feel new. So as many people pick these cameras up and push all the buttons and like kick dirt with cameras, like if you rented that camera, you borrowed that camera, it's not yours, like double your amount of time that you're testing that camera and try it in all the aspects and shoot a few clips. Make sure that the files come out correctly. And then if you plan on, if you're using any peripherals, if you know you're going to shoot with a recorder, right? Or if you're going to shoot with any kind of wireless follow focus or anything like that, make sure that it works. Make sure that like a lot of the times you rent a camera and all the ports are dirty, or there's a rock in there, or, you know, rental house gear is scary. Share grid, I'm sure, is pretty just as scary, you know, peer to peer, right? And I forgot what the other one is, but whenever you're borrowing a camera and you have no idea how it was used last, double check, double your time with testing. So yes, you should go through and do some back focus checks, make sure that the autofocus works. Also, when I pop a lens on there that has a motor in it, I pop off the manual. Everything's in manual all the time when they're in transportation mode. And then when I put it on put the lens on the camera, I flip it back to autofocus, and then just make sure the autofocus works with, you know, a Sigma lens and a Sony camera, or a Canon lens on a Sony camera. Make sure that it works, because I've seen plenty of interviews where it's just a hair slightly off, and then it kind of ruins the whole thing. But then you can tell them, you know, just make it look like film and everything will be fine. Just make it really soft and then blooming highlights, and there you go. Now you have film. But no, that's not a good that's not a good strategy. So, but yeah, if you're doing autofocus, if you're concerned with focus in general, and don't let the camera control it, and you want to be all manual, you know, the idea will be definitely double check that, especially if you're doing third party and it's not Sony camera, Sony lens, you know, and even still that all the lenses now, they have firmware, and your camera has firmware. So double check that. Double check everything that you need to, you know, and it's not a bad idea to hop on any forum and just see what people are saying when shooting something like slow motion on a new camera. So I hope that answers that question. I'll talk quickly about.
I forgot already the question, Max.
Yeah, the questions was like how what did the what do the colorists need from the camera test sessions?
Okay, I will actually, before that, I will say, I don't know if I can share a screen.
Yeah,
If
go
you,
Oh
ahead.
yeah, let me make you a presenter. Sorry
all
for
right,
that.
yeah. So, I mean, the main thing here is that, I mean, Tony is in Los Angeles, I'm in Bogota, we live far away, we are going to make a shot, and he says to me, hey, why don't we make a look? And we try to keep that look consistency from set to final grading. So based on that, the first thing that I need to do is to understand the story. That's the reason that Tony told the story. And then what I need to understand, let me share my screen. Wait, yes, it's already shared. I didn't know it. So the first thing is that, okay, I need to be really methodic following some steps. So first, I need to know what the story is about. Then I need to ask Tony the references, the look references, and we already talked about it. And this is so important. Everyone looks the color a different way. I'm sure, Max, you see blue in some way, Tony see the blue in some other way, I see it. So I definitely need to see some references for me to know what is it there. Then we start talking with Tony about the color and how it's gonna be. And what I love so much is when the DOP send me references, for example, these ones, I love to start like talking about how to deconstruct a look. So in this way, for example, one of my first question is this an digital look or a camera look? Or is it both? It is a camera, also this one over here, is a camera look or a digital. So based on that, what I try to do is I try to say, okay, I can do some of these things on set, some of these things, sorry, in the software, and some others, I need the help of the camera and the scenario to do it. This is really, really important before anything, like to try to understand the look and what are the needs for the look. For example, in this case, if you notice, Tony sent me these two types of looks. The first one are like blue, a blue cyan kind of. These ones are more like have some of the magentas, not so much blue. And also this one is blue. I will say that this one especially is this one is like the typical Hollywood look. That is all blue, make it in post.
Blue
And
steel.
yeah, and also kind of saying that this one, but this one has a little bit more of something like, I mean, this is like sunset. No, it's not sunset, but I mean, it has a really,
No
really beautiful,
contrast.
yeah, content and so on. So that conversation is really, really important. Based on that conversation, what I love is to do the same. I mean, I love this web page, Shotdeck. There is another one that is called FilmGrab. And what I love is like, okay, now that I know the look, I will try to find some other look or try to find something similar. So I do the same as Tony do here in Shotdeck, or I can do it looking at movies or in YouTube. So for example, the first thing that I put is that I notice is that he wants something blue. So I select blue, then I say exterior, and then I say time of the day, this is like day. And based on that, I will start like filtering. And this is great because I can find something really similar to what Tony wanted, for example, this or this, but I can find also some things that I can propose to Tony. For example, in this case, I love this one. And I will say, okay, based on that, I will also save these references and I will start talking with Tony about these references. Why not? Why not? And that's actually the best part. So based on that, okay, then I will go actually here and I will look at the diagram that we actually, before recording, we did this diagram. So we were like thinking, okay, we have to follow these steps in order to try to understand what we're going to do. And one of the best things, we already talked about creative decisions, all of the things we're going to do, but one of the best things that or the most important things that we have to decide here is the camera test, the technical decisions. What is the color space that we're going to work? Are we going to make a full one trimming aces? Or are we going to monitor everything in Rec 709? What is the codec that we are going to use? Is it RAW? All of that things are really, really, really important. Because based on that, I can start like developing a look or a look LUT, or you can call it a show look LUT, I will say better. So talking about it, what Tony did was he sent me all of that clips, many clips, and my first and my first like decision was, okay, I'm going to import the references and I'm going to start looking at them. And I will ask the same questions as I did with the first references. Is this artificial or was it do it on set? And I will start like thinking in my mind, okay, if I have to do this, probably I have to move least gamma gain, probably I have to desaturate the highlights and so on. Probably Tony doesn't want so much like the color of these oranges, but I will think also, okay, this is kind of aggressive. So I will first, before doing anything, start thinking on all of that decisions. Then I will also import the decisions these stills that he sent it to me, and I will also analyze them technically, looking at the scopes. How much dynamic range has the images? Are really blue? For example, in this case, you can look at the scopes, at the vector scope, or for example, this one, that this has like 2 colors. So based on that, what I do is like, first, I know the story, I think of the story, then I start knowing the look of what Tony wants. I also import my references here, this one over here, and why not? I will also share that to Tony, and we can start discussing. And in that discussion, it's really important. Tony can say, hey, yeah, maybe I like the sky, but can it be a little bit more blue? Or I like how dynamic range is this? Or maybe I want something more darker. So that discussions are really, really important. And one of the best things that we are doing here is that we are doing this before recording. So this means that we usually have these discussions after recording and in the color sessions. When we are doing this, or one of the advantages of doing this before recording is that we already save time. And that's the most important. We already save time. And probably at the end, when I'm grading, I will know what I have to do. And I will know what Tony wants to do. So that is, I love this workflow. And I feel really, really glad when someone is going to record something and he said to me, hey, why don't we start discussing the look before recording? This is like when we call like, okay, post-production start before set in the camera test or in the camera develop. I don't know, Max, if there is a question in this part or something like that.
We're good, Diego. Go on. Probably there will be like the questions, the age-old questions that we will face again, right? Is it better to grade before the shooting or really after the shot? But this kind of questions will, hopefully we can shine some light through the questions throughout the whole webinar series throughout July.
Sure. And what I feel also is really important is, as a colorist, is like, okay, the DOP and the production send some references, but also you as a colorist give them some other options. I mean, we are looking at images all of the time, so give them some other options, and we both can start making the look. So this is something that I really, really like. So, okay, Tony already made some camera tests and he sent it to me. and he sent me a lot of clips. And the funny thing of this part is that I will say, okay, so do I need all of these clips if I'm going to make one general test, or maybe I need one or two? So I will say that when we are looking like, or when we are thinking to make a look that is going to cover an aesthetic decision of a show, we need to think in general. We need to think in general, and we need to think in a tonal adjustment, maybe a saturation or a hue shift, something like that. But we need to think as something like, okay, it's going to be like a look in progress. It's not going to be the final look. Why I'm saying this? If I use these references, this one over here, and I create a look LUT show based on this one, and I give that to Tony, probably he will be so limited when he loads this LUT in the camera or in the monitor, because everything will be so dark, everything will be so blue, and at the end, I'm sure, I don't know, we have to test it, Tony, but we have to test it, Tony. But I'm sure Tony will say in some moment, "Oh man, this is so blue, I will take away the LUT."
And LUTs, you know, I think LUT's a great starting point, and not every single thing is gonna like. I would say just kind of the idea, I guess, on my side is sending you what each scene would look like, at least a little small representation, because of, you know, one is the hoop, one is a wide shot, one has some green in it, one has some metal in it, you know, and then to make sure that all those are consistent throughout and have a nice theme versus if I send you one or two, then I'm not gonna have, you're not gonna have an idea as to like, you know, what the overall, like, it's not gonna match every shot, but the LUT is a great starting point.
Yeah. So
on the discussions of LUT, Diego, perhaps you will anyway talk about it later on. But I'm really curious about building a show LUT, because we know that when we are building a color decision list, for example, when working with the DITs on set and dailies, we know that in Resolve, CDL are only taking the first node in the Resolve, the serial node, right? And how is it with LUT? We know that secondary corrections will not be covered by LUT, but what are the good practice, the best practice when you are creating LUT in Resolve?
okay, so first let's think that, I mean, in the budget of the production.
That's the best thing to start with.
Yeah, I mean, in this production, let's think that I'm with Tony. Probably Tony will have an assistant, but is that we are not going to have like a light grade system that is going to modify the LUT when he's recording or something like that. We are not going to have a color scientist that is going to verify if that LUT is creating problems. So what we are doing is
really matters.
yeah, definitely. What we are doing is that we are going to create a LUT that is going to make a tonal adjustment. But in my mind, as a colorist, I have to say that, and I have to say to the colorist, this is one step, but this is not the final one. The final one is going to be in grading at the end, but this is definitely going to give you the intention that you want before recording it. So that's like the main my main thing before doing it. So based on that, what I do here in Resolve is, okay, first in this part, I think general, always general. And definitely I will take in this part a general shot. For example, this one, if I make a look based on this one, definitely it will not work here. If I make a look based on the shadows, it will be a look just for the shadows. So I need to take in general, really general. And based on that, I have to put that in Resolve. Usually when you want to work individual, you work in clips. But here we need to work in a general, like general part. So that's the reason that I need to switch from clip to timeline. The timeline structure in the node will works as if you make some adjustment, for example, this adjustment will modify everything what is in your timeline, everything. So the my main point is that, okay, so I will make a LUT here, a LUT here. Then I need to decide, okay, before that, actually, I need to decide, okay, with Tony, he's going to record in log, but we are going to monitor in Rec 709. So I need to send him a LUT in Rec 709. So I will not start messing in this workflow with an ACES project and so on, because it will not work. If we are not aligned, it will not work. So based on that, what I do here, I start making some tests that are over here. So first I did this one over here, where I have like, let me see, yeah, it's this one, where I did first make, I think more than log conversion to Rec 709, a manual one, and then I made a LUT here, like a look using logarithmic and using also moving the color wheels here. And yes, I make a look here, and what I do after that is that I test this LUT in some other shots, and I start looking at them and I say, okay, nice. It's not so aggressive. It's more in this part. It's more that one I wanted, that one Tony wanted. But definitely, this is a conversation. This is a conversation, and this is something that in this part we can do it. And this is the best thing of making a LUT before grading. So maybe I can do this. Also answering your question about the how many tools we can include in the LUT. I mean, you can do primaries, you can do log. The last time I was using HDR tools, but I found that there are problems with the temp and tint. So I have to fix
Diego,
them.
before we move on,
Yeah.
there's Joey want to know that if you are you working in ACES color management workflow
Now,
or Resolve white color gamut at the moment?
in this case,
And how do you decide which one to use?
I mean, in this case, how we decide is a decision of the workflow. In this case, with Tony, we say, okay, we are going to monitor in Rec 709. And we are going to use in some way a non-color managed, but I will say non with using this, because in some way we are managing the color from set. But definitely, if I show my project settings, is Rec 709. That are my settings. Who decide this? The team and the workflow. In this case, we decided with Tony because we are not so many in the team.
Yeah, this is the team. 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah,
That speeds up the decisions, by the way.
We're still an international team.
Yes, it's international. And definitely, if you say, hey, but you are working in a display refer color space and so on. Yeah, but I mean, we are doing this workflow based on that. We can do it also in ACES, but it will have, let's see, another steps. Creating a LUT for ACES to monitor will have another steps. So yeah, in this case, we both decide the workflow, and in some way, it's a low budget workflow, and it's not this thing. It's not a, let's see, like not so compromised workflow. I will show you why. Okay, so first, I will not use any qualifier. You can use hue, the curves, these curves, hue versus add, hue versus lom. You can use also the color warper if you need, for example, to adjust some shifts, for example, here. Let's see, something like that if you want. Oh, sorry, so much. For example, if you want something like this, but you have to think that this is a general, this is not the final look. This is not the final look. So that was a first test. This was a second test. Look, where I use exposure, then a look, and then I use over here a chromatic adaptation for make something more warm. And what I do is that because Tony sent me many shots, so what I do is test the look in all of the shots. And for example, in this part, I can say that, okay, maybe Tony here did an adjustment of in the iris, so definitely will not work. But what I try to look here is consistency. It's consistency and nothing so aggressive, nothing so much aggressive. Also, what I do is I like usually to test it that LUTs or that looks here in a grayscale. So based on that, I can check if it's really invasive, and in this case it is, especially in the highlights. And also what I like to do is to apply this LUT in a Macbeth chart. So based on that, I can predict in some way how this look is going to react with the most popular colors that you can see it here. And I can notice, for example, applying this look, that the middle gray is going to be affected in some way with this look. But these are just like listing conclusion and some testing things that you can do it before. I also made another LUT that is, for example, listing on this one, that this one is more aggressive. Let's put it here. As you see, it's more blue, more than the way Tony wanted. But I will also like say, okay, let's move it in all the clips to see how it's gonna be. And start looking
Diego,
at
questions on that.
yeah.
There's a questions in the chat. Is how much of an issue will it be using Show LUT when we have a lot of like different shots and a lot of like different exposures of the day, time of day. For example, some shots the sun is moving out from the clouds, and some other shots the sun is moving behind the cloud. How much of an issue when we are creating LUT
I mean,
for
it's,
the
it's like
show?
that's one of the reasons that I say we have to think in something general. Usually, what we sometimes do is, if you notice, I use 3 nodes here. Usually, in some cases, you send a LUT without the exposure. So the exposure is the one that the camera decides.
Yep.
But you send a look here that is going to give you like the color of what is going to be shooted. Something like that.
Can you also do the matching and balancing on top of the LUT of the Show LUT that you are creating? Or is it like when you're using Show LUT, it means that you don't need anything balancing and matching shots anymore?
Now, definitely, you say something really important. Here in the camera test, we need to think that we are not going to match. We are doing a general decision. We are doing a general decision. And that if we need to match, then we can apply a CDL and so on in the clip stages. But in this part, it's a general LUT. It's a general LUT, and because it's a low budget production, so we cannot send a CDL and a LUT. We just have a LUT, and that's it. We just have a LUT, and that's it. So we don't have, yeah.
I just add one thing is like, this is something you probably want to expose for and like put in a client monitor, but you still want to record flat. You want to record log. You don't want to burn this in. This is like a sidecar situation. Maybe this goes to like an external recorder and you're doing this for dailies, but you're not doing this for what's going to post, or maybe, somebody just needs to cut the dailies, or, have something that looks like this, and this is the idea, and this is what you want to see on the client monitor, but this is not. I feel like you should always have log, like no matter what. You always shoot log, and then later, then you can match it against these, and then that's when he can get in and really mold these to look like a real theme. But this is just a working spot for, to go out there and you know, when you have a client monitor, or if you're trying to test this idea, you're going to shoot within the constraints of this hues and kind of expose your camera to that. But I definitely would 100% record the native log before even like this is a sidecar.
Yes, definitely. Let's think that this is a monitor LUT. We will not burn this LUT in the files.
And make sure whichever camera you're using, even some of the newer ones, if you import a LUT in, it burns the LUT in. I know that the Canon C70 will do that. So have an external, like a Shogun or something like that, a Blackmagic Assist, and do it externally. Don't do it internally.
Yes, that's something really, really important. But it definitely helps. You know why? Because in some way, if I send this LUT, Tony, he will record looking at this.
Yep.
And he will like make his aesthetic decision based on this. And it will be great because in editing, they will look something really similar.
And you might relight, you know, if you know, especially some of these shots are high contrast, you might relight or maybe do some bounce under there so you can see the face more, or, you know, the contrast is too sharp here, so then you adjust your camera settings. So there is a reason for it, but at the same time, just don't use it as a guide versus using it as something that you're just burning in and you think you're saving on the back end of post.
Yes.
You're saving a little bit, but you're not saving the whole thing. You still need to do color grading on after the fact. So you should have this as not as a shortcut, but as a reference.
Yes, definitely. And when exporting a LUT, you say, okay, we send this, we talk with Tony, then we make some adjustments and so on. Definitely play or make a note with the look and start playing with the opacity. This will also help or will tell you how much of intensity of the look you need. Mm-hmm. So it's really, really important like to put it over there. And when exporting, it's really easy. Right click, LUT, generate LUT, and here you can select the options. And it's really important to import your LUT to verify if everything what you did was correct. If everything what you did was correctly, and if there are no problems setting it up in Rec 709. That's the main idea. And okay, you finish the camera test, they record with that. And I will say always save your stills. When you are then with Tony records all of the things, and then you go back to grading. And if you have one LUT file, you cannot see what is inside. You will have everything born in. But if you save your stills, you can like import your still, put it in the timeline or in a post view module, and you can start modifying. And there in the final stage, the great thing is that you and Tony and me, we already decide how it's gonna be. So I will not start like wasting time thinking or saying to Tony, do we want this or do you want this? No, we will start like improving the grade. So yeah, we will definitely save time.
I think again, you know, for what it's worth, you know, don't live by the LUT, but honestly, just use it as a way that's you're setting your boundaries for yourself. So you understand like where the goalposts are and how far do you push it. And like I said, you might add some bounce, you know, so you can see somebody's face with that look. And that look is still not solid until you're in post. That look is just, you know, do not show up. Don't turn over a drive that has a bunch of burned in looks and then you don't have a log version of that, because now you've lost a ton of that data that you need. So just
yeah, and definitely
sidecar, that's it.
Yes, and definitely if I send a look to Tony really similar as the references he sent me, for example this one, probably that LUT will just work in that shot.
Yeah.
And I don't want that, and Tony also don't want that. So let's think in a look that is going to be developed, but that is going to give the aesthetic intention of the show when you are recording and when you are editing and so on.
So Diego and Tony, while watching the clock, we are overrun our time like usual, But is there anything that you want to say to our audience before we wrap up?
We'll be shooting chip charts next week. We'll be doing camera tests next week in Canon Studio with their cameras and you know, with chip charts on the wall, and we'll do that live. And then we're going to create a LUT doing that back and forth, creating a LUT from the camera and then sending it to Diego, and then vice versa. And you can use LUTs in Premiere as well. I know we're heavy on Resolve today, but all these can be done inside of Adobe Premiere as well.
So yeah, we will go more into details about creating Show LUT, and we'll do a live sessions next week, live from Canon Burbank Studio. And we'll Genaro Xavier Arroyo, the senior, how do you call it, the market specialist, pro market specialist from Canon, will be joining us in the show as well. So make sure to tune in next week to see more about the process of LUT creations. And in the meantime, I thank you very much for your time, for joining us today. And yeah, looking forward to see you next week. And don't forget that you can get the handout in the handout sessions. Diego kindly provide us with a very nice chart for the look development workflow. So maybe you can benefit from it for using it in your next project. So thank you very much, and make sure to tune in next week, and see you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I'm always thinking
July.
yeah.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.